So, like, the man who would show up randomly without, like, announcement and would just be bringing, like, money and giving us, like, all sorts of love and making us laugh and telling us, like, really great stories, but I never really knew him as him. And so this project's been really fun because I got to see, like, the areas in which he grew up, the different places that, like, he has so many stories about Saginaw and, like, the different areas that he used to haunt and as a child. And it's, like, been really fun, like, showing him the process that I've been using for this show and being able to, like, we both have always had this shared love of photography, and it's just been really fun being able to, you know, teach him something after all the years of, like, lessons that he's been teaching me. And yeah, I've been having a great time learning about him. I've also really liked, like, learning about the different archival work that he's, like, you know, my grandpa's lived a historical life, and it's been really fun, like, seeing all of that history, like, learning about all of the different things that he's been involved in with over the years, and, like, going through all of those archives and like hearing him give me the context behind them, and just seeing him outside of, ooh, grandpa, like, seeing him in newspaper articles where they interview him for stoking Negro hate, and and, like, seeing, like, the different things that he's founded. Like, in Saginaw, he's called the King of Saginaw because people have seen him for so long. And so a little bit about the process that I'm using to kind of capture that work is called a Van Dyke. And so it's a very extensive process, many steps. And so, like, the first step for the style that I'm doing is called digital hybrids. So I have to, like, load the image into Photoshop and then go through and change it to a CMYK file, then go to the black layer, remove the black layer, and then after doing that, change it back to RGB, and then after that, doing, like, some quick color adjustments to, like, get it back to, like, the colors that it was before. And then after that, then I go through, I have to change the image size. That's the thing that I hate the most, because sometimes I miss it and then I start printing and it's wrong. But after that, then I print it. This is the part that I hate the absolute most, because it takes literally forever. Like, forever. Like, forever. It's obnoxious, but eventually it comes through, and once it does, like, it's kind of worth it. It creates, like, these really nice kind of prints. I'm doing, like, 12 by 18 is the size I'm doing, and then after the paper prints, then I have to create the negative for the image. And so to do that, I go through, I change it to black and white, then I invert it in Photoshop so that it has the negative, and then I fill it with a red layer. And so doing that kind of helps it contrast so that you can see it better within the process itself, because all processes are very particular sometimes. Then I load the transparency film into the paper or into the printer to create, like, the negatives. Yay, more printing! It's honestly my least favorite part. And then I have to make sure I change the settings of the printer because different papers receive different amounts of ink, so I change it to plus glossy, and then it snatches it and I have to wait again. And so instead of sitting around and, like, actually watching it print this time, I go and I start coating my paper. So I take the Van Dyke solution, which is made of silver nitrate, and you have to filter it out because sometimes those silver pieces will kind of linger at the top and it will ruin your print by putting, like, little black speckles on it. And then you let, like, the excess kind of fill back into the bottle, and then from there you're ready to coat your paper. And so you have to do it in this dark room because the chemistry is a light sensitive chemistry. And then afterwards you clean up, And you have to make sure you rinse basically everything almost immediately, because we like to call silver nitrate like the glitter of the photo world, because it gets everywhere once you don't know that it's there. After that, I create my fix, and so with that, you use sodium thiosulfate. Take usually about 2 to 3 spoonfuls, but you need to get about 38 to 40 grams. Then you fill up a beaker with about 2,000 milliliters of water. It doesn't have, like, all of it doesn't have to be completely exact, but it's best to try and get it as exact as possible. Then you pour in the sodium thiosulfate and mix it in. It dissolves pretty quickly in the water. Like, you could actually just leave it in the water and it'll dissolve on its own, but I like to do it a lot quicker, because in the time that it is doing this, my paper is drying, my negative is finishing up, and so it just helps me stay productive. And then after that, I take out the developing trays, and I take one and I fill it up with water, and then the other one I fill with the fix, which is what we call the sodium thiosulfate solution. After that, I make sure I go back into the room and I spray down everything, because again, that silver nitrate, it's like glitter herpes. It's gonna get everywhere if you do not keep it under control. It'll touch everything and you won't know it's there until like the sun hits it. And then after that, and my paper's dried, I go through and I put it into a contact printing frame. With digital hybrids, you have to get it lined up pretty exact, just so that it'll create the image that you want without it being kind of like hazy, and it'll have like those precise details. But if you're not doing a digital hybrid, a few of my prints aren't digital hybrids, you don't have to be as exact with those ones. But these ones, it's like, you gotta be completely on it, which is why like I have to be very, very delicate when I'm putting it into the frame, and then I have to hold it in place, lock it in place while after that. And with the contact printing frames, they make it so that it's completely flush against the paper and your negative, so it allows it to get these crisp details to make sure that it doesn't get kind of hazy, which can happen sometimes if the contact paper is not, like, the contact between the paper is not complete. But after I get it in the frame, I check it over to make sure it's all lined up. This one looks good. And so after that, then I move on and I put it into our UV light box. And so we have different shelves for each one. I prefer to use the bottom shelf because it's the only one with all lights working. But after that, you put it in there and you close the curtains, because UV light, is not great for your eyes. And then I set the timer, and it's more waiting and waiting, like, yay. Thankfully, it's not as much time though, because Van Dykes are known for being how quick that they expose. They expose pretty quickly within like 1 to 3 minutes is usually time frame for my prints. So like this one was only like 1.5 minutes, maybe a little bit more. It's usually best to do test strips. I usually don't, just because I found that like I've gotten a pretty good guesstimation gauge. And then afterwards you take it out, open the frame a little bit so that you can, only a little bit, like these for contact printing frames are best because you can take it out, look at it without shifting your position. And so doing that, you lift it up, see if the chemistry is starting to get a little darker in the actual areas that you need it to, and once it is, then you take it out. And from there, I take it over to the sink, and look at that. It's such a nice print, isn't it? This is actually my favorite in our series, or my series, but then you go through and you have to rinse it first, because there's usually a little bit of a layer of silver nitrate that kind of stays on top, and so you want to rinse off the excess that's not going to fix into the paper. And it takes not really a long time, but it's like a little bit, like you have to be very particular about it. You don't want to put the water on it too hard, or else it'll ruin the image. And then after that, you put it into the fix, and the fix will help darken the image. It develops it, basically, kind of like how you do like traditional film photography. And it'll kind of get rid of that golden tone in the prints. Part of the reason why I wanted to do the Van Dyke process for this is because of that golden tone, because it kind of reminds me of like the idea of legacy. And it also gives like work a like kind of antique look. So for the images that aren't digital hybrids, it kind of complements. And then after you've had it in the fix, you rinse it in the water for about 15-ish minutes, sometimes longer. It just kind of depends on when I remember to take it out, but never for too long, because then the rinsing could get rid of the image. But after that, you hang it up on the clothesline and let it dry. After it's dried for a little bit, we like to take it down and put it onto one of our drying boards. I don't always do this. Sometimes I leave it overnight, but if you put it on the drying board, it's less likely to curl, and then you have a finished print. I really love this series, especially because of just like being able to show the different connections that my grandpa's had with different members of our family, and it's just been such a great opportunity to like learn more about my grandpa and experience so many things with him and seeing who he is.